Welcome back again to the Build It Basement. So in this video, we're going to be assembling the Z drive motor assemblies that will power our actual Z going on the linear rails that we did last video. So let's jump right into it. So I'm going to use a close-up cam for this video. This one in particular, you're going to want to kind of see how things are going together. I will tell you that over here on the side, I already have some pre-built units that I've gone ahead and done. Like I said before in other videos, a lot of repetition. No need to watch me do it over and over again. I also already put my heat certs in my plastic. For those of you that do not know how to do a heat cert, there's only really one method. It's using a soldering iron, but you can use a heat cert inserter. It's one of these guys, and basically it's two heat certs on a threaded rod that goes inside of your soldering iron that you use to push in. I'm not a big fan of those because of the coloring. They're hard to see the heat cert versus the piece that you're using. So my preference is to use just a soldering iron tip that's been nubbed off on the end. So the reason why you nub it off on the end is so that you're not sticking that into plastic beyond where you're going. Making the plastic molten and making it square up into the actual heat cert. So use a temperature that's around the temperature you're printing plastic with, probably 10 or so % higher, maybe 15% higher than what you print your plastic at. And then basically your heat cert is going to set into the spot. There is an up and a down on them. The ridged side is your upside, and then there's a flat side, which is your downside. You're going to set those in, and then at 90 degrees you're going to push them in like that until they're flush. If you'd like, you can do that and then flip it over, push it in on a flat surface, or you can eyeball it and then put your finger on it real quick. As long as you just do it quick, you shouldn't burn yourself, but that's how to do heat cert. I do have a video on that. Maybe I'll leave a link down below on that when I upload this video. So let's look at manual real quick. That's where we left off last time. And there's the heat certs. And this is where some of the real building comes in. This is what I consider to be some of the first actual technical building. Some of the things where, things really count. And you have to be relatively precise. So that being said, I do have my calipers out. Digital calipers, I would say, are probably one of the things you should definitely get. You can get a cheap pair. Matter of fact, I believe these are just a cheap pair from Harbor Freight. I have two cheap pairs. So if one dies, I have another one. I have compared them to each other, so they're relatively accurate. They're accurate to each other, which means there's a better chance than not that they are accurate, period. And the other pair is not the same as this particular model. So let's look at that real quick. So the manual is calling out that we need to have 33 millimeters of shaft showing as we assemble these drive assemblies. So I'm going to loosen up my screw here. I'm going to turn on my calipers, and then I'm going to thumb this down to about 33, and then I'm going to fine tune to 33. And then once you get really close, sometimes it helps to actually put a little tension on it using another finger or something so it doesn't move so quickly. And then once you get right where you want to be, there's 33 on there, that's where you want to be. So that 33 represents three things on this caliper. Distance between these two on the outside, distance between these two on the inside, and distance between here and the end of here on this end. So we're going to be using the distance from here to here. So we have our shaft, and we're going to do as the manual shows us here. We're going to assemble our first pulley on the shaft. I gotta make sure I get the right one here. Yes. And specifically, a couple things about these shafts and about building this is Actually, let's do a zoom. You do have a flat surface on these shafts, along with a rounded surface. That chamfered surface that you have on there, you want to make sure one of your set screws is in there. You also want to make sure that your set screws, these ones are, but make sure your set screws do have a little bit of Loctite or some type of, you know, thread locker on there. These are pretty tight on there, and I think it's just because the Loctite is dry. So I'm going to just pre-tension that a little bit. I don't want it to actually hold it, but I just want it to be there. And I'm going to do the same with the other one. Okay, and if you have that just on there a little bit, it's not going to be able to turn anymore. You're going to stay on that flat surface. So now what I need to do is make sure that I have that 33 that we're looking for. And the easiest way to do that is to actually elevate this a little bit. It's actually easier when I have my other parts, but just find something to elevate your tool width. And then once you get it where you want it, you can go ahead and give that a quick turn. Double check your work. I know it's 33 still. I know that's 33. I know if I went over here again, it would measure the 33. And this would also measure my 33. So that's 33. Turn that off. Already did the other ones, so we're good with that for now. So now that I have that on there, they're Loctited. Those two are tight. I'm going to give them one final turn just to make sure they're good. You don't want to over tighten these because you do not want to strip these out, but you do want them very tight. So there you go. All right, back to the screen. So we've now assembled that piece. And they do go into telling you that a majority of the issues that people have with these printers are based on the set screws not being tightened enough, not making good grip. I've never had that particular issue, but I can see how it definitely would be an issue. So on this screen, this is a bearing stack, or what I like to call a bearing stack. It's basically a stack of different bearings with different shims with different parts in between, and they're all in specific order, and they're all specifically spaced. There are multiple ways you can do this, but I'm going to show you my favorite way to do it, which may not be the exact same way that everybody else does it, but it works for me. So that's what I'm going to show you. So I'm going to take the piece we just built, this guy right here, and I'm going to move this camera just a little bit higher up and pull that right there. All right, and we're going to start off by the fact that we're going to need a bearing on the very top of this. So I'm going to set that aside. We are going to need 2 shims. In order to build this stack, I'm going to take my huge cast but polished drive here. We'll put that on top. Okay, and I'm actually going to build this inverted. So I'm going to start off with 2 shims. I'm just using this as pretty much a holder. Extra set of hands, and then a bearing. And I've been finding that these bearings have been going on pretty darn hard. So they are machined pretty close to tolerance on these pieces. So 2 more shims on that. Like that. And then in actuality, this is going to go on. Okay. And then we have our bearing that's going to go here at the end. Or should. Very, very, very tight. I'm going to try a little lubrication on that. It scares me because I don't want to get a bearing kind of jammed on there, so I'm just going to use a little lithium grease here, applying to the edges, just to help a little bit. There we go. Get us over that hump, you know. All right, and then last but not least, we're gonna have a bearing bearing on the very end, on this side. That's gonna snap in place like that. Okay, so I'll actually show you the manual here again. And they want us to put a belt on, and then they want us to mount it inside of the housing. So what I suggest you do, this is again the way I like to do it, is I suggest, or I vote, and since I'm the only one here, I get the only vote, that you build it in the housing. So if you place your bearing stack, your drive completely inside the housing that it's going to live, and associate all the parts where they're going to be, and then finally find your flat surface, your chamfer, and then line up your drive with that. Actually, I'm gonna get these started first. I'm gonna struggle here for a second. I'm not sure what was the deal with that one, but it's going to start a screw in here. And again, these are really tight. I think it's because the Loctite is already on them. And then we're going pretty deep with this, so we're actually driving this all the way in. So it's going to seem like you're kind of spinning till eternity, but it will catch. And then once it catches, I'm going to back off so we can put that where it needs to be. So, oop, there we go. Back it off a little bit, and then we're going to find our chamfer, because this is solid. Remember, this pulley right here is solid on there, so as long as I can line that up and line this one up, we can lock that in place. So now I have my pulleys, or yeah, I have all my geared elements exactly where they need to be, and on top of that, my bearings are exactly where they need to be, and any differences, any tolerance differences, are all taken up by the fact that I just built it in place as to where it's going to live. So once you have that like that, you can then remove it, put in your final set screw here. Give that a good spin. Yeah. There we go. And it just so happens that this just barely reaches deep enough to give it its last tweak. Like so. There we go. All right, so back to the manual we go at this point. So what we want to do is we want to get the belt on here and we want to get it into the housing. So what I will show you is I'm going to now put the belt on. These belts are a little stiff. They're Gates belts, but they're feeling a little stiff to me. Just gonna pull the belt down through like that. Everything's still moving freely. And we're doing exactly what the manual shows. And then we're gonna put the top of this housing on, like so. Shouldn't have to force it, should fit on there pretty easily. And then we're going to have 6 M3x40 screws that go in here on the top. Now, little note on this, bottom ones are a little jammed up. You don't really want to use anything too powerful to put these in, because remember, you're really going to crush some plastic if you do. So keep that in mind. These pretty much only need to go in enough to hold everything together. I mean, there's 6 of them there, and this is not a huge part, so it's going to hold itself pretty well. Now on this, you could get away with using something with a little bit of oomph to at least get your screws started. Or at least I'm going to, because my screw holes are a little bit small. But I am going to stop this short of actually pulling everything together. If I push hard enough, I'm sure I can get these to go through, but doesn't seem like something that's worth the while. All right. So now that you got all 6 of them in there, what you kind of want to do, or what I suggest you do, is kind of work each one in till it's barely snug. Get back to that barely finger tightening thing. And we're just going to start to tighten these up in a little bit of a back and forth pattern again. Just to make sure everything's seating exactly where we want it. So I'm going to start off with this guy in the middle. Okay. And then I'm going to jump over to this guy, the other side of the middle. I'm going to cross over to this, cross over to the other side, cross back over, cross back over one more time. Then once you have all 6 of these snugged up, just want to make sure that you did not lose anything by tightening them all up. Sometimes what will happen is the plastic will actually pull together. And don't over tighten these, because again, you're just going to pull the plastic. Your screw heads, or the ends of your screws may just slightly come through on the other side. And your screw heads will be pretty flush on this side. So there you go, that's your drive unit. Let's go here. All right. So now we got to set on top of this the portion that's actually going to be our tensioner for this actual shoe, for this actual bottom, whatever you want to call it. So on the side facing up with 3, do this. With 3 heat certs, this is going to sit like this. So this cutout hole is going to be over where this other hole is. Before we do that, it's going to need an M5 nut. So this M5 nut will fall right out, but there's plastic over it when you do it in. So if you flip this upside down, then flip it onto it, you'll be pretty much okay. And then you take a few M3x8s. See if we can get that nut to go where it needs to go. There we go. We'll start the first screw. Get the second screw in there as well. Lucky screw number 3. Just gonna tighten up that last one. Just kind of roughly doing a crisscross on just about any portion of this build where you're screwing things together. And then once you get done, give one final quarter turn to make sure everything's nice and tight. There we go. There is that. So they do go over on the manual here this little Voron heart, which represents a accent part, which if you choose, you can print in a different color, or you can choose to print in whatever color, any of these parts that you'd like. But if you notice in my print, those are a, I think it's a what do they call it, stellar blue or something like that. So next up is working with the stepper motors. So stepper motors are going to be located in the box marked motors. So you could pretty easily grab those. And you're going to get the motors that have the connectors on them, not the ones with the wires on them. These are going to be relatively close to where they're going to connect to. So it is going to direct connect pretty much. That being said, we got to get the 16-tooth pulley on there, and that pulley is going to go on like so. Okay. Now you should have printed a tool that you can use to basically give you the exact right location for that pulley in terms of where it is on the shaft. So we're going to start our screws, our set screws. I think I have one that I'm going to put over there. One that just doesn't seem to be the right size. And I'm just going to torque this in. And I will say again, on this LDO kit, these set screws already have thread locker on them, and they are pretty tough to turn in. It's a little bit of work. I think it's because of that thread locker, but no fault there. It's not a bad thing. So I'm going to grab our tool, and I'm going to set it in place like so, and I'm going to tighten up screw. It might not be the greatest angle on camera, but I need it to work for me here, so I'm going to make sure this is where I want it. Tighten it up to hold it snug. And I'm going to confirm it. Yep. And then come back over here. A little push there. There we go. We're 100%. There we go. So pulley position, 16-tooth pulley, yada yada, thread locker, good. And the only thing we didn't do is the 10.7 that they mentioned there. We used the jig they gave us, which puts us right where we want to be anyways, or we could have measured in between there. So yeah. So motor orientation. So on motor orientation, we got to be careful. And the reason we got to be careful here is because LDO is slightly different than the actual manual when it comes to the motor orientation. See if I can get that up real quick. So right here, they're telling us that they want the connector to face towards the front of the printer, or towards the towards the side, the skirt of the printer. So unlike the manual from the Voron, the actual Voron manual, this is slightly different. So do be advised that you should be checking this. This is in the docs.ldomotors.com wiring guide, above deck wiring, stepper orientation. That's what it is. So so it's not going to look exactly like this. So they're telling you to orient it this way. It's going to tell you orient it slightly different. And let me show you what that looks like. So in the end, you're going to be orienting your motors like so and like so. Okay. And then when they go together, you're going to have something that looks like this. that connector is facing out this way on the LDO kit. Excuse me. So let's build the last one. So we have those two like that. We have this one like this. So this one is going to be a mirror of this one, or not a mirror, a copy of that one. So basically it is going to look like that when we're done. So on this, I'm choosing to put a little thread locker on this. You probably could get away without it, but I'm choosing to. I'm also choosing not to get any actually into the hole, so there we go. I'm gonna wipe up the excess on that. And then wipe that off. Go like that. And we're gonna use a couple more M3x8s. Finger snug. Finger snug. Finger snug. Take it, give it a good twist. Give it a good twist. Give it a good twist. And just double check. There we go. All right, so we have all 4 of our motors now, and we also have all 4 of our drives. Boom. And we have our tension clips here and our feet. All right, so where does that put us? That puts us on attaching everything to the frame. So let me grab the frame. Be right back. Let me grab that frame for us. Make us some room. That's that bad set screw. And this is frame, rear of the frame, front of the frame, like that. And let's see here. They are saying Z0 drive is the first Z drive that will be added to this printer. The fully assembled Z drive is highlighted in blue. Okay, so the first Z drive, and I'm not sure what the best camera is going to be for this. Maybe this one. This is Z0, and then Z1, Z2, Z3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. 0 on this corner, my left-hand side with the printer facing towards me. And I'm going to turn the printer like that, facing towards me, which gives you a horrible view. So I'm gonna grab this camera and move it over to here, and put it over my shoulder. That way you can see all the mistakes I make. And I think that will work. All right. Screen share that. So Z0, that's where it's going. And that's what it's going to look like when we install it. We're going to need some M5x40s, which I don't know if I have those out yet, but we'll have to grab those. And we got to make sure we grab the right motor with the right orientation. And we're going to also need some M5 T-nuts. So working right here. Again, this is the, actually that's doing nothing for us. So let's just go full screen with that. This is the front left-hand side of the printer. This being the front of the printer. this being the left-hand side. And we are going to put our M5 nuts in. We're going to need 4 of them. Wow, that's a good shot of the side of my face, isn't it? And they're showing orientation on these as being facing inwards. Oh, of course, I do it the exact opposite way that I want it. So we're going to face them inwards, so the hole facing closer to the corner. Oh, really got to pay attention here. I probably could get away without doing it that way, but sometimes there is a reason for it. So let's just assume there's a reason for it. Okay, so we have that there, and we need M5 by 40. M5 by 40, M5 by 30. M3s. M5 by 40s. Big screws. It's probably the biggest screws in the whole printer. Which makes sense because they're holding the feet on. So we're gonna need a few of those. And now we gotta make sure we get the right drive for this. So we're looking at the corner, and I need to get my orientation right. So you go back up real quick. So front of the printer is showing like that, put that off like that. Okay. All right. So basically, this guy is going to go like this. So glue thread locker on these, just on the very ends actually. 1 and 2. And then this is going to go like so. And it is keyed. There's a groove here, so that will fit. And then we just have to line up our screws with our points, our T-nuts below. That. And then I gotta make sure I have the right driver for these, which I don't know where it went. We'll use this. So what I've done is I push these all the way through, so they're on the ends, and my big melon is going to get in the way here, but I am just going to line them up one at a time. 1, hopefully 2. Nope, I didn't grab 2 yet, so I'm going to work it down a little bit and try to see where that is. I might have to turn a little bit so I can see better. Sometimes it's really difficult to do some things on camera. All right, I felt that, cat. All right, so both of those are caught, and we're keyed in to the base of the printer, like so. So, all right. Now I'm going to grab larger Allen wrench, and I'm going to give these a good little tweak. That one I might not be able to reach, but this one I can. We'll just make sure we get this one the best we can. All right. Nice and secure. All right. Looks like we jump back a little bit. Okay, there we are. So upside down assembly. We got our 4 nuts on there. We have our main drive unit. And yeah. So next thing we want to do is we want to slide the motor into place. So we know our motor is going to face towards the side, towards the skirt. So we just basically need to find one of the 2 assemblies that fit that position. And camera rig. Let's try this. So basically, this motor is going to get slid into place behind that, and then it's going to thread directly in to there. And we're going to use some M5x10s to do that. Now they are calling out specifically that we only put this one in. And we do not tighten it. So we're leaving that pretty loose. Still a wobble. The reason for that is we actually have a tensioner that we're going to use on that. So let's get back to this. Watch my melon. Tensioner is basically a little wedge that is going to ride in between the printer and or the motor assemble and the drive assembly, and is going to push the printer away, or the motor away from the actual drive assembly when it's tightened up. So let's put it back onto this. That again is another M5x10. So really trying to get a good angle here. Everything should be lined up, first of all. Save ourselves a little bit of a headache. And then this piece is basically going to ride in there. And when it does, when you close it, it's going to basically push away from the drive unit with the motor. Allows you to tension your belt down here. So let's put that on. These are M5x8s or M5x10s. By 10. All right. Seems like the screw's a little short, but it works. So we're just going to finger tighten that. Finger tighten that one too. And get back to the manual. And then they're showing us that we can close that piece to tension everything up. Basically relying on the sliding of the T-nuts in order to do that. So we have that in. These screws aren't very tight, and then I can actually make this move when I move this, but I'm basically going to take this and clamp it closed like that. And at that point, that is a nice tight tensioned piece that's going to hold. That's actually spaced out. So kudos. Good job. All right. Now let's see. Well, getting the foot on there. So the foot's held on by an M5x16, the rubber foot. And that's just what we think it should be. It's actually going into that M5 nut that we put in a second ago. And it's just going to hold it. Sandwiching between that and our accent piece right here. And there is a complete Z-drive assembly. Now again, this is Z0. It's going to be followed by Z1 down below it. And then Z2 on the other opposite back corner, Z3 on the opposite front corner. All right. I think I can get rid of this guy. Check position. Ensure that that closing the belt tension did not cause the Z-drive motor to move, shift. If it did, undo the bolts and realign. So basically, just want to make sure everything is still where it needs to be. Everything's square. Nothing is out of whack. You should be able to turn these belts, and it shouldn't really move. If you go clockwise and counterclockwise, that belt shouldn't ride in one direction or another. It shouldn't really move much up or down on those drives. So it looks like we're good there. And then they're basically just putting the rest on there. So I'm not going to bore you with putting the rest of these on here. I'm going to put them on here. I'm going to come back and we'll move on to the Z idlers in the next video. And if you found any of this instruction good, you like it, you want it, go ahead and hit subscribe. Go ahead and like this video, and I'll see you next time.